So just before we jump into development, speccing out projects, the first thing we really need to do is set up our environment, our computer. I've got mine all set up, but I've done a little bit of research to try and make the experience a bit nicer, cleaner desktop, a bit more fluid, and a better way to organize all the apps I have because I have lots of them. So I'm just going to quickly show you a few new tips and tricks on how I've set up my machine, what tools we're going to use in general, not just development, but my general workflow and tools I use and how I organize them. So if you want to follow along in a very similar fashion, this is kind of the initial PC setup. So my setup is quite simple, but the little tweaks make it really nice to use. So firstly, I just have now a clean desktop. If you want this wallpaper, just leave a comment and I can send it to you. What normally happens is across the bottom here, you pin all of your applications that you use. The issue I've started having is I've got that many that I'm sure you've seen my bar. It goes all the way across nearly. And I prefer to really see this as mostly just applications that are open and quickly get to the others. The problem with the start menu is it's not very good, as we know. It's terrible. So that's not really a solution. So the first thing I did to find out a good way to put the application somewhere. Now, Chrome OS, Mac OS, Linux, they all have much better ways of handling and grabbing applications. So I wanted to clean that up, and the experience I've now got is if I press the Windows key and space, which is similar to, again, Chrome OS and Mac OS for launching things, I get a nice little pop-up now with all my applications, and I can scroll through them with the mouse. And I can click to open them up nice and easily. So that's one little tweak that makes it really nice. So we'll start with that one. That involves a few things because the other tool I used to use Mac for many years in development until they got really bad at hardware and then really bad at software. And then I moved back to Windows. And the problem I found with Windows is when you have a window open and you want to close it, then you have to press Alt F4. Now, if you've ever got used to a Mac or other systems, there's a much quicker way, which is typically the Windows key or your system key on your keyboard, and W for closing a single window, or Q for closing the full window. So like the system key and Q is like Control F4, and I can't even remember the single window closing windows now because I've not used it that much. I think it's like Control F4. So I've remapped those. So if I press Windows key and Q, it closes. So it's like F4. And if I'm in, say, a browser, which we'll come to in a second with these, and open up a browser tab and press Windows key and W, it'll close a single tab. And Windows key and Q would close the whole thing. And then to open an Explorer, I've got Windows key and E. So all those three keys are right next to each other. And now I've also got the Windows key and space to pop up this. So the whole flow of working and closing and opening is very easy. I just leave my hand in one position on the keyboard and can kind of navigate the whole system. So to do that, there's a few steps. As you can see here, AutoHotkeys, you want to download this and install it. So just download current version and install it. Nothing will happen. You'll think like you open a program. You don't. Once it's installed, if you press Windows key and R, and if you type in shell:startup, then OK, you'll get into the startup folder, or you can just type in the actual path here. Right click, new, and just create text file and type in whatever, so new shortcuts, and then put .akh and delete the .txt, and then confirm. Now you can right click on this new file and you can edit script, and that'll open it up in here, or you can just open it up in Notepad, whichever, if you don't have that option. Once you've done that, if you type these commands, then you will have the same controls as I have. So this hash means the system key, and then Q means the Q on the keyboard, and then double colon means to basically capture that. So whenever I press Windows and Q, I then want to do this command, which is to now send keys. The exclamation is Alt, and then in curly brackets and F4 means the F4 key. So basically when I press Windows Q, send Alt F4. Same here, when I press Windows and W, press Control F4. And when I press Windows key and then this special text here that means space key, so Windows and space, send Alt, Control, Shift, and A. And the reason for that is in the next step, because to get this menu, we use something called WinLaunch. So we'll get onto that in a second. So if you added that now, the shortcut we'll add into WinLaunch will be Alt, Control, Shift, and A. Just a random sequence I put in there that's, I never really press so I don't accidentally trigger something else. Once you've done that and saved, you can either restart your computer, because this will now start up every time your computer starts because it's in the startup folder, or you can just double click the file and AutoHotkeys should start running. If you've already ran it, so if you double clicked it twice, you'd get this warning. So you can do that to make sure it's running and click yes. And now if you test it by doing Windows key and Q, you should get closing the window. So that gives you the ability to add nice shortcuts. You can expand that a lot more, but that's all I use it for. So that's AutoHotkeys. So Windows key and W, we'll close that. Now the other benefit is this lovely sort of pop-up application launcher. So if you download WinLaunch and install it, it's pretty much that simple. It will present you with typically a blank screen, mostly blank like this. And if you click this plus arrow down here, you'll see you've got all these options to add files, folders, and links. So you can add links to websites, links to anywhere else, folders on your machine, so I can dock certain folders, or files, which are typically shortcuts. You can also go into settings and configure a few things. I don't think I have anything special configured here. If I just flick through so you can see. The only thing I've changed is the activation is Alt, Control, Shift, and then click there and press A, and that's it. And I've disabled hot corners, because you can have it appearing when you just go to the top left. I don't like that because it's too accidental. Look and feel, that's how I've got it set up. And that's basically my settings if you want to follow them. Once you've done that, you'll have mostly blank. So the next question we'll have is how to add all your shortcuts. Well, typically they're on the taskbar here. So to get to the taskbar, if you just do Windows key and R, and you type in percentage app data percentage, and then that will take to the app folder. And then you go into roaming, or rather that will take you to roaming. Go into Microsoft, Internet Explorer, Quick Launch, User Pinned, Taskbar. This will then have a bunch of shortcuts that are on your taskbar right now. So you can see I've only got pinned those three. And these two, this is the recording software, and 1, 2, 3. Oh, and the mail is a special kind of Windows UWP app. So that appears in a different place, which I'll show you in a minute. So you'll typically have a bunch of all your shortcuts here that you've now got access to. So copy this address location here. So Control C there. Open up WinLaunch and click the plus, then click Add File. And then if you just paste that address into the file name and press Enter, you'll get into the folder with all the shortcuts. Highlight them all and click Open, and it will just instantly add them all to the screen. So that will rapidly get you all of your icons. Now you can just click and drag and rearrange these. You can go over, very similar to mobile apps, move them around. So you can set that up that way. If you want things like mail, then Windows key and R, and type in shell : apps folder, and click OK, and this will get you a bunch more apps. Now I believe mail is in here, there we go. And if you just right click and create shortcut, it will prompt to create one on the desktop. Now you can rename that to mail. And then you could go back to WinLaunch. You can even right click as well, you don't have to click the plus at the bottom. Add file, go to the desktop where the shortcut is and add it. That will add a new icon like this. You can see I've changed mine to a Gmail style icon in blue. To do that, you could just create a PNG file and save it somewhere. And then you just right click on the icon you want to change and click edit. And then just click the icon here and now browse for a new icon and double click, and that will change. If you want to remove them, obviously right click remove. Now, one note on this is make sure that you don't delete the icon file, the PNG, because it's linked to that directly on your machine. So once you change, say you've got that icon on your computer, then you delete it. Next time you restart your computer, the icon will have gone. So you need to keep them icons there. So that's how you get the WinLaunch open up with now the Windows key in space because of AutoHotkeys, and also the little helper for AutoHotkeys. So the next thing I do then is unpin all of the applications now that I don't necessarily constantly want there, which is almost everything. So even though I use a lot of things almost all the time, when I first start a computer up or when I want to close practically everything, the only things I have left open is text messages, emails, and I want to sometimes just access a folder quickly, and the internet. So those are pinned, and all the others are now just in here. So all you do is right click and unpin from taskbar, and it cleans up your taskbar. Then say you want to go and open up Typora to make a note. You can just click it that easy. So it's Windows and space and click it, and now it's back on your taskbar. But it just helps to clean up this massive taskbar, which I now like. So that brings us on really to, I guess you might as well see my layout of my tools that I use daily. So I've organized this in kind of rows. So the top one sort of folders, emails, and notes as much as I can, or general, I don't know, the most mainly used things. So my notes for the day, pictures, browser, emails, and Typora I use for making markdown scripts and documentation. Git Kraken I use for the source control for committing. Git Sync's my little tool, which I'll probably distribute and show you how to get an installer soon. It just basically does Git commands on the mass. So if you have 30 repos, which I have lots of, then you can just do this to do like pulls, pushes, check branches, see if there's any changes by just clicking it once, and it goes through the entire list of repos. I'll show you that in another video. I've got then Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio, obviously, and Photoshop for obviously any graphics I do. So this is my kind of development line, very clean and simple at the minute. Next one is my video recording stuff: Acoustica for fixing audio, ATEM for recording, Resolve for editing, OBS for screen capture. Sometimes when I do the Skype live chat things, I run it through OBS instead of through Resolve, or instead of through the ATEM. So this line is like YouTube, Patreon, all the website shortcuts I use often. And then the one below that is like contacts and chat messages. And then if I scroll with my mouse, I've got rarely used things. So SolidWorks, 3D design, and shortcuts to macros in my editors. And I haven't finished setting this up yet. This is the start, but I'm loving it already because it's like a nice, easy pop-up. You just have to get used to not wanting to see all your icons down here and click down here. It's much easier to keep them clean and then just quickly press a button and open them up. So that's the setup I have for my machine. I have dark theme on Windows, which is now built in. So all you have to do is right click, personalize, then colors, I believe it is, scroll down and change your theme to dark from light. And that will change, your Windows File Explorer as well. So that keeps everything nice and dark. And that's really it. So there's my PC setup. If you have any suggestions or tips, or maybe there's some other software I can use to make it nice as well, do let me know in the comments. This is a very community-driven project, so feedback's always great on this. And as always, if you can support me through this, I do it all for free. That would be greatly appreciated too.